In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said Mary. My wife's name.
Just put the guns away.
Imagine to yourself for a moment. You are just a kid. Your parents have gotten you a PlayStation 2, your very first video game console, and you are incredibly excited. That was me. My dad later took me to a local pawn shop and told me to grab a handful of games that were for sale. I grabbed a few that looked interesting to me. I grabbed God of War, Ratchet and Clank, Hitman 2, and Silent Hill 2. I didn't really know what to expect from this game when I bought it, but I played it and I was taken aback. I was so scared, yet I was very captivated. And after finishing the game for the very first time, I was left with a feeling I can only describe as that feeling you get when something truly resonates with you. It's an experience every game wants to achieve, yet only so many do. The original Silent Hill 2 was one of those games for me. Up there with Red Dead Redemption 2, Telltale's The Walking Dead, Hollow Knight, Dark Souls 3, and the Resident Evil franchise, Konami and Team Silent crafted a truly special piece of art that has stood the test of time, and created a game that I consider to be one of, if not my favorite game of all time. So as you can imagine, in October of 2022, when it was announced that Silent Hill 2 was getting a remake akin to the Resident Evil remakes and the Dead Space remake, I was excited and nervous all at the same time. Enter Bloober Team. Bloober Team was a fairly under-the-radar development team, with their biggest game being Layers of Fear. They had developed other games, which all received their own fair share of criticism. Bloober Team had shown that they can create atmospheric horror games, but would they be able to handle the subtle storytelling and deep symbolism that Team Silent had achieved so many years ago? In their previous Blair Witch game, they had strayed so far from the source material and implemented an entirely new story, essentially. So needless to say, people were skeptical, and so was I. However, I was still optimistic. And enter October of 2024, and my optimism was well rewarded. Bloober Team had an incredibly daunting task before them. How do you remake something held in such high regard? The expectations for this are for this game to be great, for it to be amazing, and if you mess it up, no one will ever forget, and you will be remembered as the team that destroyed Silent Hill 2. And well, the answer is they handled it with care and respected the source material. Visual-wise, the game is a clear and obvious improvement upon the original. The hardware of the PS2, while solid for its time, simply cannot match the visual overhaul that Unreal Engine 5 offers. James Sunderland looks the best he's ever looked and actually gets more tired and dirty as the game progresses. The redesigns of all the characters look fantastic. Maria, Laura, Eddie, and Angela all look outstanding, and in particular, watch the eyes. So much more emotion is now able to be conveyed through the character's eyes, whether that be despair, lack of sanity, fear. You can tell, and that is immeasurable in terms of value it gives to the game overall. It makes me care more, since we get to connect with these characters on an entirely different level than the original game. Speaking of characters, arguably the most important character in the game is the town of Silent Hill itself. Silent Hill looks spectacular. All the environments are filled to the brim with detail. The fog that engulfs the entirety of the town, it builds the atmosphere that is tangible almost. The other world looks dangerous, it's scary, it's intimidating. It is incredibly immersive and it looks amazing. The lighting is stunning, helps build the atmosphere, and helps us feel what the game wants us to be feeling, whether it's fear, intrigue, safety. Every aspect visually has been an improvement, but that is to be expected considering the 23-year gap between the original and the remake's release. But visuals only go so long. What about the story? What about the gameplay? And well, the story largely remains untouched, which is great. Silent Hill 2's narrative was practically perfect. There's no need for a change, and since this review is trying to be spoiler free, I will refrain from talking about this section in depth. That being said, however, the small changes they did make were welcome, and they also added 2 additional endings to the game, so there are now 8 endings rather than 6 like the original. Bloober Team also, thankfully, just like the original, handled the very delicate subject matters of the game with grace, not making light of PTSD, sexual frustration and sexual assault, guilt, suicide, and loneliness. They give them the respect needed to tackle such subject matter beautifully. And that's all I will say about the story. I know a lot of people haven't played this game quite yet and are just now being introduced to the franchise for the first time, and rather you experience the spectacular writing for yourself. The gameplay is fun. The remake now has switched to the third-person over-the-shoulder camera system rather than fixed camera angles tank controls of the original, which is great for the modern audience. Combat is engaging and fun. The weapons James gets are serviceable and fun to use. I enjoyed playing with them a ton. In New Game Plus, there is a chainsaw you can use, which is crazy overpowered as well, and gives you a completely different gameplay experience from using any other weapon, and that is also incredibly fun. There's also now a dodge move to avoid taking damage, which is greatly appreciated and makes the combat just that much more engaging. Whilst the original didn't heavily rely on combat, the remake doesn't shy away from it. It recognizes that the market has shifted and having some action in your survival horror game is fine, and it embraces it. Combat is incredibly fun. The enemy designs are really cool. They translated to the remake from original practically flawlessly. The ramp up in difficulty in the game is also really great. The steady rise in challenge as a player gets comfortable to throw them off their balance is very nice. It leads to a very enjoyable gameplay experience. Bloober Team improved all the boss fights greatly. The combat being a step up in conjunction with the over-the-shoulder camera makes this practically a given. But the bosses themselves are much more proactive. They have cool moves that you need to dodge, and just all around are better bosses than the original. I'll have a video later on detailing the boss fights and how much I enjoyed each one, but this is a spoiler-free review, so I'll refrain from mentioning anything else about the bosses. The town of Silent Hill is designed beautifully, not just visually, but as a level itself. It encourages exploration, which I would heavily recommend as well. The game will reward you greatly with more healing items, more ammo, You will need to explore anyways in order to unlock certain endings and to solve many of the game's puzzles. There are also collectibles throughout the world as well to help enrich the game's atmosphere and make us feel more connected with the world. The puzzles, while to be honest, they're not as great as the original, are serviceable, and I enjoyed them nonetheless. The game's level design encourages exploration and getting lost in the town of Silent Hill, and I think that is amazing. The acting, sound design, the music are all great. Let's start with the acting. Luke Roberts as James Sunderland is amazing, with a capital A. He had so much more nuance to the character, making him feel all the more real, and honestly, being a complete and utter step up from the original. Salome Gunnisdottir, the actress for Maria and Mary, plays both of these characters beautifully, and it's incredibly impressive how they just convey two very different characters and different emotions with these characters. Her performance as Mary when reading the letter was incredible, and made me feel a certain type of way, a feeling that hits very close to home because I had lost someone to a illness myself. Gianna Kell, Scott Haining, Danny Karen, and Evie Templeton, the actors for Angela, Eddie, and Laura respectively, all did fantastic. They knocked it out of the park with their nuanced performances. I cannot give them enough praise for the incredible work they were able to provide for this game. The sound design is incredible. This game has to have good sound design to be a truly unsettling experience, and they excelled. Monsters sound terrifying, the rain hitting the street creates an ambience, the grunts walking around to the very random breaths you will hear throughout your playthrough will put you on edge. But one thing Bloober Team wanted to do was use the sound of silence to create something truly unsettling, letting you sit there with no real music, no sound really, just you and Silent Hill. It immerses you to a great extent, and it makes the moments when your radio crackles or when you get jump scared all the more tense and scary. The actual soundtrack is still as great as ever, either just reusing the older songs or using more modern techniques to give the songs a better sound. The soundtrack is still impeccable and truly did hold up to the standards the original game had set. And with all that in mind, my conclusion for this review is that this game is amazing. Silent Hill 2 Remake is a work of art in an era of gaming where remakes have been happening more and more. With the Resident Evil remakes, the Dead Space remake, this is arguably the best of them all. I wish I could experience this game for the first time again. This game is a 5-star, 10 out of 10 game for me, and maybe that's just nostalgia talking, but to be frank, I don't care. Play this game if you haven't already. It truly is worth the experience this game will give you. Bloober Team, thank you for creating a marvelous piece of art and bringing Silent Hill back into the spotlight. You may have revived a long dead franchise, and I hope to see more great things from this franchise going forward. Thank you for watching to the end of the video. I worked really hard on this one. I wanted to talk about this game so much since I finished my initial playthrough. I'm currently on my second playthrough. I'm going to go grab all the endings and a couple of achievements that I wanted to grab real quickly. Going forward, I want to say I'm going to be posting a ton of Silent Hill 2 content for the time being. Guides, challenge runs, lore videos, whatever. I would be streaming more, but as of recently my internet has gotten astronomically worse, so videos are going to be the main thing I'm putting my energy towards. I hope you are all fine with this change. I'll still upload Dead by Daylight content every now and then. I actually have a script for how Dead by Daylight squandered the Silent Hill franchise, but that'll come later on. Anyways, that'll be all. Again, thank you for watching, and once again, if you haven't already, play this game. This is my game of the year, and I think if you are anything like me, it'll be yours too.